What industry is a lot shadier than it seems? My dad knows a story from someone who works for a nationwide grocery chain. They have to deal with an Italian mafia to import balsamic vinegar. More people died last year over vanilla in Madagascar than cocaine in South America. They've even coined the term, vanilla murder. Farmers hire armed mercenaries to guard their crops from thieves near harvest time. And if one is caught, well, let's just say it's in response to all the farmers that were killed by thieves for the same reason. This article is a fairly light read on the subject without anything too graphic. But there's a great deal of information about it floating around, along with some pretty disturbing accounts. The maritime industry. Most of the big companies do things by the book and treat crews well because they're afraid of lawsuits and unions, but many smaller, mom and pop, companies break laws and violate safety regulations with reckless abandon because they're not as visible and can stay under the radar, so to speak. It's very common for a small company to ask a captain, crew to do something illegal and dangerous in order to increase profit, and for the captain, crew to comply out of fear of losing their jobs. And that's just the US maritime industry. Sailors from poorer nations who work on ships are often fed little more than rice and cheap ramen for months at a time and paid pennies for their backbreaking work. I love running tugs for a living. But the industry as a whole is rife with shady business. A lot of hobby fish importing is pretty shady. You have farms of certain types of fish like bettas in some areas of the world that are run with the fish in horrible conditions. Which is why a lot of the ones you get in a major chain store are sick before you even bring them home. The stores will blame the fish being stressed. But I've ordered and received hundreds of fish from small breeders, sellers and outside of Cory catfish that really enjoy committing suiciding by poisoning their own water. The fish arrive healthy and fine. Outside of boutique fish farming, the way some wild fish are caught is just horrible. The trappers will lightly poison the water supply to knock out the fish, then scoop them out of the water without a care for that area's ecosystem. This has led to depletion of some natural species to the point they are now endangered. Lastly, boutique fish sellers, major chains do not give half a rat's ass what happens to the fish in the end. This means that people who buy fish like plecos, bettas, goldfish, etc., end up getting sick of them and dumping them in local waterways to supposedly get rid of the problem. So in some areas, these fish have completely destroyed the local water ecology because, like other invasive land species, they were never meant to be there. One of the worst offenders is the lionfish in Florida. It's venomous and has no natural predators, so its population has exploded out of control. https www.youtube.com watch v=csd7pgvov3m. The same is true of plecos. https youtube v1_lcpryp5u, and goldfish. https youtube fzxiuxwggim. Basically, releasing fish into the wild is a terrible idea. Releasing any animal into the wild can have disastrous consequences. But fish are being released into a very limited ecosystem and outside of a few diseases. If they can adapt to the water and have no predators, they will survive and breed incredibly quickly. I love my fish. I love the hobby. And there's a lot of value to it, as global warming may make things like reef tanks a valuable source of coral in the future. But there's also a lot of bad to it. Dietary supplements. It's gotten better. But there's still a lot of half-truths and whole lies. Not all that long ago it was seriously like the wild, wild west. Eyeglasses. You have no idea the snow job they put most people through when it comes to buying them. It's far, far worse than trying to buy a new car from a dealership. Wholesale frames are about $5 minus 20. Wholesale lens blanks are another $10. Any kind of dip coating, UV, tinting, etc., is negligible cost and effort to apply, literally pennies. To top it off, they don't even do a whole lot in-house, but send it to labs, which are basically sweatshops that can take up to 2 to 3 weeks when labor time is literally under 5 minutes. Instead of training real opticians and technicians, they're just glorified sales staff now. Most of the time they don't even bother with proper measurement for PD. Frame width, or arm fitting, was an optician in the early 90s. I'm horrified at what the business has become. Recruitment industry. Some examples. 1. Fake jobs to lure candidates for registration KPIs. 2. Trainee negotiation tactics of telling a candidate there is a better candidate who wants less, so we recommend less for you to get the job. Especially for contractors. 3. Single quote. Coveting off. Pitching and telling a candidate they have been sent to a line manager, but in reality they haven't been submitted because 2 others from same recruiter have already been in interviews. If they fail, you may get a chance. 4. Lot of coded ways to put on a database info on your age, non-professional related appearance, and ethnicity. 5. Ageism, sexism, racism is rampant in hiring. 6. A lot more dodgy stuff behind the scenes. Source: was involved with the industry on a global level for over 15 years before I changed careers. All industries are shadier than they seem. I used to work for a flute manufacturer and it was shady as hell. Trucking. The margins are razor thin and so everyone is trying to nickel and dime each other constantly. The drivers lie to their dispatchers. The dispatchers lie to the brokers. The brokers lie to the clients. All of this for like $50 minus 100 sometimes. Domain names. There's so much shady stuff that goes on when it comes to domain names. Cyber squatting, sketchy registrars, domain hijacking, scams, predatory pricing, etc. Then there's the whole ICANN.org fiasco that's been in the news recently. Recycling. Dirty little secret of the recycling industry is how much is either shipped overseas and dumped in a landfill or just sent directly to your local landfill. The good news is the toxic stuff is what is sent overseas. Well, good news if you're not in a poor country, I guess. Rating services like Yelp refuse to advertise and your good reviews magically get rearranged. Hey, look, if you want to do that and be transparent, I get it. But most every business owner knows how scummy this is and most clients just have no idea. I have a business that isn't something that would usually be looked for on Yelp. They called and I just froze. Luckily I do long-term rentals and was sold out. Explained I wouldn't have an opening for months. They seemed to leave me alone. Yet they have my business on the front page of Google search. Under the wrong category. Doesn't the beauty industry have a problem with child labor? I remember watching a thing where a journalist goes to India to see the mines where children mine some sort of mineral to make bronzer. Edit. The mineral is mica and someone pointed out the video where I remembered this from. Link. https. www.youtube.com watch v equals IERH9C2FGC and feature equals YouTube. B. CBD. Lot of predatory companies making subpar products with questionable raw materials and then marking it way the fuck up and selling it as a miracle cure to vulnerable and ill-educated consumers. Usually have a high-power legal team on deck, but pay their workers shit and no benefits. Edit. Because so many people are asking. While I used to be in sales in the industry and have my own opinions about who's good out there. It's a woefully short list. You'll probably have your best luck checking out the top recommendations at. They have a whole pinned post about best companies that they've, hopefully, vetted well. Pet industry. Basement puppy mills and dogs that are so inbred they can hardly breath. There are plenty of ethical breeders out there. And some unlicensed breeders are ethical even if in a legal gray zone, but the conditions of some of the so-called puppy mills can be really bad. Sometimes when breeds are mixed and the pup gets the recessive genes the breeders weren't looking for, they straight up euthanize it because they know it won't sell. Not to mention how many purebreds are actually not pure at all, and sold as shady. Mattress industry, specifically, mattress firm. Avocado farms. Most of the farms in Central America are taken over by the cartel because of how much money is in selling avocados. This will probably get buried. But Glitter, a manager of one of the biggest glitter manufacturers, Glitter X, said in a 2018 interview that most of the glitter they make goes to one buyer for a single industrial use. When asked who the buyer was and why they need so much glitter, she said, "Oh, I definitely can't disclose that." When asked why, she said, "Because they don't want anybody to know it's glitter." Ever since this interview, people have been trying to guess what company or industry secretly uses most of the world's glitter and why they want to keep that use under wraps. A link to the interview. Cruise ships. I was told I was having a minimum of 1 day off every week and work normal hours. 8 to 10 h per day. With a good pay and good pre-paid tips, I ended up working 30 days in a row. You'll over 400 hours. For $1,600 with tips included. This company I was working for was called Scenic Cruises. Ship was called MS Scenic Crystal, which was an Australian company working over a Swiss company going under a Maltese flag. Sailing in Central Europe. That's how I understood it anyways. They deliberately did this so they could break international laws. I counted at least 5 that they broke. Biggest scam company I ever worked for. I resigned after my first month. The police boarded the ship every once in a while because they knew this, but they couldn't do shit because they had no jurisdiction over the ship. I was forced to work with a 39 Celsius fever. I really wanna fuck this company up, but I literally have no idea how. And hiring an international lawyer or whatever is too expensive. Edit. If anyone knows how, please contact me. What industry isn't?